Om Agyanatimirandasya Gananchana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupagada Mayam Nidatti Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavanscha Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijan Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitangscha He Krishna Kuruna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurandi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapachubhischa Kripa Sindhu Vivacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Ram Chaiva Narodamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nasta Presha Budreshu Nityam Bhagavat Shevaya Bhagavad Yuktama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. So today, Thursday, May 9th, 2024, and we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter number 22, Prithu Maharaja's meeting with the four Kumaras. Today, text number 32. Who knows who is speaking? Sanat Kumar is correct. So, okay, I can hear them talking. Maybe I can close the door. Just close the door. Nata parataro loke Pumsa swarta vitikramaha Yadadyanyasya prayashtvam Atmana swavyatikramat Nata parataro loke Pumsa swarta vitikramaha Yadanyasya Yadanyasya prayastvam Atmana swavyatikramat Nata parataro loke Pumsa swarta vyatikramaha Yadanyasya prayastvam Atmana swavyatikramat. Chant.
Nata parataro loke Pumsa swarta vyatikrama Yaranyanyasya prayastvam Atmana swavyatikrama
Nata parataro loke
Nata parataro loke
Pumsa swarta vyatikramaha
Pumsa swarta vyatikramaha Yadanyasya prayastvam Atmana swavyatikramat
Nata parataro loke
Pumsa swarta vyatikramaha Yadanyasya prayastvam Atmana swavyatikramat. Synonyms, please repeat. Na, not. Pataha, after this. Parataraha, greater. Loke, in this world. Pungsaha, of the living entities. Sa'arta, interest. Vitikramaha, obstruction. Yat adhi, beyond that. Anyasya, of others. Preyastvam, to be more interesting. Atmanaha, for the self. Swa, own. Vitikramat, by obstruction. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. There is no stronger obstruction to one's self-interest than thinking other subject matters to be more pleasing than one's self-realization. Please repeat. There is no stronger obstruction to one's self-interest than thinking other subject matters to be more pleasing than one's self-realization. A real sock-it-to-me verse, isn't it? This is just this section of Sanat Kumar's instruction. Completely wonderful. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Human life is especially meant for self-realization. Self refers to the super self and the individual self, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity. However, one becomes more interested in the body and bodily sense gratification. He craves for himself obstructions on the path of self-realization. By the influence of Maya, one becomes more interested in sense gratification, which is prohibited in this world for those interested in self-realization. Instead of becoming interested in sense gratification, one should divert his activities to satisfy the senses of the Supreme Soul. Anything performed contrary to this principle is certainly against one's self-interest. Nata parataro loke punsha smarta vitikramaha yadhyanyasya preyastam atmanaha svavitikramat. There is no stronger obstruction to one's self-interest than thinking other subject matters to be more pleasing than one's self-realization. Mukum karoti bachalam pangam lagayate girim jat kripa tamaham bande sigurum dinatarinum. When I saw the first line of this verse, Nata parataro loke, I was thinking, Mata parataram nanya. Kinchadasti Dhananjaya from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says that, but he says, Mata, me, Mata parataram nanyat, nanyat. There's nothing parataram superior to me. There's no truth superior to me. Kinchadasti Dhananjaya, oh Dhananjaya, winner of wealth. So this has nothing to do with that. But it's just a nice verse to remember. And then he's going on to say, everything is connected to me, coming from me, is depending on me, just like pearls, sutre mana gana iva. Iva means just like pearls are strung on a thread. So everything is resting on me. So that is the supreme truth. And there's a phrase used in the Bhagavatam, otam protam, which means that just as a cloth is made up of threads that are woven together lengthwise and breadthwise. So you can't have cloth that's just some threads going in one direction, but it's woven. That cloth is woven. The threads are woven together. One set of threads is going this way, and one set of threads is perpendicular, going that way, and they're woven together, and that makes up the fabric, right? So we could say that the fabric of the universe, the fabric of everything that is within the material existence, is made up of that thread of Krishna. Otam protam is going this way, it's going that way, and altogether it makes up the fabric of reality, which consists of nothing but Krishna. And just like here, we were reminded of that verse from Bhagavad Gita, Mata parataram nanyat, that everything, there's nothing superior to Krishna. Everything is coming from Krishna. Everything is, in one sense, Krishna. And the only thing that is not Krishna is what? Who can say? The Maya is coming from Krishna too. Not that we are Maya bodies, but Maya is an expansion of Krishna's energy. So what is there that is not Krishna? It is our forgetfulness of Krishna. That is the non-Krishna factor in this world, in life. And that ties right in with this verse. Because today's verse is so nice, because it is saying that if you think that there's something that's more pleasing than pursuing Krishna consciousness and serving Krishna, then that is the greatest obstruction to your Krishna consciousness, to your self-realization. Thinking that there's something better, something nicer, some sweeter taste. Everyone is looking for that sweet taste. Just like the birds in the trees, they're eating the fruits to get that sweet taste. They love that sweet taste of fruit. So to think that there's something sweeter available than Krishna consciousness, then that is the greatest enemy to one progressing in self-realization. And we may all honestly admit that at different times and at different places and at different points in our life, even after becoming devotees, we thought that there was perhaps something sweeter than Krishna consciousness. And then we thought about it. And then that becomes an obstacle to our Krishna consciousness. So, who is the devotee's worst enemy? It's himself, or the mind, which is trying to convince us, is making various arguments, that this is sweeter than Krishna consciousness, this is better, this is sense gratification on some level, whether it be gross sense gratification, which generally the devotees try to give up, hopefully, or do give up completely, and then, but then there are other more formidable enemies than gross sense gratification. That is subtle sense gratification. And subtle sense gratification is summed up by Srila Prabhupada as profit, adoration, and distinction. And so we see that people who are not Krishna conscious, they're always seeking profit, adoration, and distinction. Even if unknowingly, or even if on the tiniest level, even in the most foolish way, which is so obvious, still, they'll practically kill themselves to get a little profit, adoration, and distinction. And that is the nature of the conditioned soul, who has accepted the process of thinking that everything is sweeter than Krishna. Anything and everything is sweeter than Krishna. And therefore making anything and everything to enjoy the goal of life. Anything but Krishna. You know, not that. People are just intrinsically in denial of Krishna consciousness. Even if they've never studied the philosophy and don't know anything, there's just this inborn, innate desire to push Krishna out of the way. And even it becomes so subtle that even there are Vedic scholars who try to deny Krishna. Like Dr. Radhakrishnan in his commentary on Sarvadharman Prityaja, you surrender to me. He says, it is not to Krishna that one must surrender, it is to the unborn within Krishna. Now what the heck is that? It's just a nonsense. To the unborn. What is that unborn? It's like, it's more like unthought, unlogic. They have that saying that, what is it? Unencumbered by the thought process. So, in pursuit of sense gratification, one is determined to be unencumbered by the truth. And then one makes up nonsense things like the unborn within. What is the unborn within? What is that? It's just complete nonsensical concoction. But one is denying actual surrender to Krishna. Somehow or other, one finds a way. Even while commenting on surrender to Krishna, one finds a way to avoid that. Surrender to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But devotees are trained in such a way to detect that nonsense and to detect many types of nonsense. I was just recently in the Prasadam room in Dallas, and there's an old friend of mine. He's a bit wacky, a bit of an avadut, and he always manages to find these people to preach to that are just impossible. So there was some guy, and So I was sitting taking prasadam, and he brought the guy over and set him down and said, why don't you have a discussion and, enlighten this fellow in Krishna consciousness? And immediately the fellow opened his mouth, and he was a dark-skinned fellow. He looked like South Indian, but he could have been from the Middle East or somewhere. And he was saying that, I find everywhere I go in ISKCON so much racism. I was like, oh man, I thought I was going to have just nice sit down and take a little bit of Mahaprasadam here. And he was like extremely, from the moment he opened his mouth, just filled with pride and arrogance. So he kept going on and on and on and on. I was just taking prasadam. He kept going on and on and on. I didn't say anything. And he said, especially in this temple, this is the most racist of anywhere I've been. And I've been to all the ISKCON temples. This one is the most racist. Now, the ISKCON temple in Dallas has a very large Indian community, but it also has many Western devotees. So it is the most harmonious blend of East and West and light and dark and different complexions and all shades in between. It is the most harmonious and cooperative, and they're putting on the Rath Yatra of all these volunteers. It is the very definition of cooperation and working together in a friendly spirit to serve Krishna. And I was marveling at how they were able to accomplish so much by everyone working together. Although sometimes devotees get involved in different conflicts. Sometimes you see, especially among Indians, like the disciples of one guru will be in a big conflict with the disciples of another guru. They're all Krishna conscious devotees, but because they have a different guru there, they make a political thing about it. And in Dallas, I was informed that they had a thing where the disciples of one particular guru, who has many, many Indian disciples, thousands and thousands and tens of thousands, they had two different factions of disciples of that guru who were at odds with each other. I thought that was very funny. They have the same guru, come on. How can there be any conflict? But anyway, so this fellow was carrying on, and he was supposed to be a jnana yogi. He was supposed to be practicing jnana. And so finally, I had enough. I had to listen to him prattle on. And I said, the problem is that you are absorbed in the bodily concept of life. And you're identifying with the color of your skin. And you're just so absorbed in that you're automatically accusing everyone of, that's called playing the race card. You're accusing everyone of being racist and prejudiced against you. I said, the problem is not your skin color. I said, the problem is your arrogance and your lack of jnana, of actual knowledge, understanding that you're not the body. And I said, that's why you're having difficulty with everyone, because you're so puffed up, thinking that you know everything, yet you're just a fool on the bottom platform of life. And you're committing offenses to devotees who are faultless and blameless. I said, that is the actual problem. He was not happy with that answer, of course, and he kept on prattling on and on and on, and he called me a racist. He said, I can see it in your eyes that you're a racist. And I said, no, I follow the creed of Dr. Martin Luther King. The man is judged not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. I said, furthermore, a fool, no matter how well dressed he may be, is revealed as soon as he opens his mouth. And my friend was like, I said to him, his name is Bhagavatam, and I said, Bhagavatam, where do you get these guys? He's always coming up with these people like that, and he's known for that. He's merciful, actually. He kept preaching to the guy like all day long in the prasadam room. And then when it's time to go, the guy went to look for his car. He couldn't find his car. He said, "Oh, my car was stolen." It turned out he was towed. He was parked somewhere where he wasn't supposed to be parked, and he was towed. And so I said to Bhagavatam, I said, his car was towed. I said, he got the reaction for being offensive to not just this devotee or that devotee, but to the whole community. He offended the whole community of devotees. And nobody was pleased with him and his behavior and his association and his so-called philosophy. And then Krishna towed his car. And I said, well, and then Bhagavad was saying, well, maybe he can stay at Krishna house. And they were like, no, we vet everyone. You can't bring in guys. Bhagavad, you're always bringing in guys off the street. You can't bring in this guy. No, we're not going to give him where to stay. He's on his own. He parked in the wrong place. It's his problem. This is my friend who's a lawyer. He was like, no way. And it was just, the whole thing was so funny. But I really felt bad for the guy because he was so proud of his so-called knowledge, but he didn't know anything. And therefore he was offensive towards Krishna's devotees. Now you may be offensive towards Krishna and Krishna will let you off the hook, but if you offend the devotees, what to speak of an entire community of hundreds, you're bound to have some suffering, and that suffering came right away. If you ever had your car towed, you know what it is. It's like, now you got to pay the money. You don't have any money. It's a big hassle. That was an interesting experience. So the obstacle to his self-realization was his thinking that there was something more important than service to Krishna and the devotees, which was his own desire to be recognized and respected. But Lord Chaitanya says, respect everybody, but don't expect any respect for yourself. Don't ask for it. Don't seek it. Don't go around looking for it, and when you can't find it, criticize everybody for not respecting you. It's just the wrong approach. Devoid of the practice of Krishna consciousness. Unencumbered by the practice of Krishna consciousness. I don't know whatever happened to him, but I let him prattle on for a while before I let him have it. But I just tried to give him spiritual knowledge, which he was too proud to accept. So, but as far as devotees who are practicing Krishna consciousness, we should not let the mind trick us into thinking that there will be some kind of sense gratification that's more pleasing than Krishna consciousness is to the self. And to think like that, that becomes an obstacle to our Krishna consciousness. We were talking about one time Mukunda Maharaj had compiled the top 10 list of reasons devotees leave Krishna consciousness. And one of them was the moon. Because Prabhupada said, I'll tell you this. Have I told the story here? Okay, it's been a while. All right, we'll tell you. So Prabhupada was in London in 1969 when they had the moon landing. And his servant's name was Purushottama. And Purushottama was very enthusiastic about the moon landing. Prabhupada, we're landing on the moon. He was so enthusiastic and so into it. And he managed to get a TV and bring it into Prabhupada's room, plug it in and tune in the station where they had live broadcast of man lands on the moon. And Prabhupada was particularly unimpressed. And he said things like, they've just gone in the studio and made some pictures. I believe the word Arizona was used. And then Prabhupada also said, they may have gone somewhere, but they did not go to the moon. The moon is a heavenly planet. They have not gone there. Neither can they go there. If you've ever read Easy Journey to Other Planets, it was one of Prabhupada's first books that he published, that you can't go there just because you can make some machine. The material nature doesn't allow it. You have to go there by qualification, by elevation. then you can go to the higher planets by performance of pious activities, but simply not by machine. But people don't know that's not how it works. They have their own idea, the godless idea, that you can just do anything and everything. Same thing, Ravana wanted to build a staircase to the heavenly planets. That's quite a large number of stairs between here and there. And Purushottama was very blown out by all this. This is one of the top 10 reasons that devotees leave is the moon, okay? It's kind of I find it kind of humorous and entertaining. Because I haven't gone there. You haven't gone there. How do we know they've gone there? They have some pictures, which, and the sophistication of manipulating film is, it's a lot better now than it was then. But there are these YouTube videos where they claim they didn't go to the moon, and they point out all these anomalies in the video, the lighting, and there's reflections, and reflections of a cameraman there, and the studio, and the lights, and it's very dark, but then there's light right on this. How did they get that light on there? It's the whole thing is dark. So there's people who are expert in pointing out these different anomalies. There's a whole subculture of they didn't actually go to the moon. I remember in 1976 when they landed the Voyager, I think it was, or one of those no, it wasn't Voyager, but it was a Mars probe. They landed on Mars and sent back some pictures. And it was rare in those days, but they published a color picture on the front page of the newspaper. Used to be it was always black and white with occasional color. Now it's, a lot of color. Although now the newspapers are out of business because everything's online. You can't make any money with print. So there was that picture on the front page of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And I was 18, 19 years old. And so they published a picture, but it was Arizona. I'd driven through Arizona on I-10. And that's Arizona. All the rocks around, kind of like, the sort of the fringe edges of Texas Canyon or something, all these rocks, and it was Arizona. And then they realized they made a mistake. And the next day they republished the picture. They said, we had gotten the colors wrong. And then they published it and everything was kind of reddish, like they put a red filter on it. And everything was red because it was Mars, right? So first they just published the regular Arizona picture, and then they made it red, like Sedona, only more so. And everything had a red tint to it. Oh, that's Mars because it's all red. But there was a mistake in the color resolution or something like that. And it was just hilarious. I just laughed so hard. I mean, I didn't know anything about Krishna consciousness, just a smart aleck kid who was cynical about everything. And when I saw that they corrected it with the red, I laughed so hard. And my best friend, his father was actually a photographer for the newspaper. And we laughed so hard about that. It's like, what lying and cheating? They say they're gone to Mars and they mess up and publish their picture of Arizona, and then they put the red tint on it. Oh, now it's fixed. It's really Mars now. That was Arizona yesterday, but today it's Mars. Same picture. But we didn't fall for it. No, everybody thought it was hilarious and a joke, and there were a bunch of liars and cheaters. The government, nobody trusted them. So these things are going on. So Purushottama was serving Prabhupada, and Jamuna was there. She was cooking for Prabhupada. This was at John Lennon's estate, Tittenhurst, in the servants' quarters. And so there was a little kitchen there. Jamuna was cooking for Prabhupada. And somehow, it was a gas stove, and somehow something caught on fire. And this flame, started burning on the stove, and all this black smoke was coming. And Jamuna called, "Purushottama, come quickly, help me." And he ran in, and they put out the fire. And he had on this white Kurta and Dodi, and he got all covered with soot from helping Jamuna put out the fire. And so he came into Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada, what happened? What happened? He came into Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada saw Purushottama all covered with soot. And Prabhupada said, "Oh look, Purushottama has gone to the moon," because he was ribbing him. He knew that he was attached to that whole moon thing, and Purushottama was so flabbergasted by Prabhupada deflating his ego. He's gone to the moon. He's all covered with soot. Prabhupada made a big joke at it, and then he left right after that. He collected his plane fare and flew back to New York and was never seen from or heard from again. So that's one of the top 10 reasons devotees leave, because the moon is one of them. I don't know what those are. I think it's the woman issue is one of them. Mistreatment by authorities. Mukunda Maharaj, he became the public relations acharya in our movement in the middle 70s. We read about that in his book. He developed that, dealing with the media. And so he had developed this. And later on, there was this whole, attack from different groups in the media on Krishna consciousness as being a brainwashing cult. And about that, Prabhupada said, your brain is dirty. It requires washing. Not brainwashing in the North Korea during the Korean War, capturing soldiers and brainwashing them to this and that. But that your heart is dirty. Your brain is dirty. It requires to be cleansed. And that is called Srimdata Swakata Krishna. Punya Shravana Kirtanan. Hridyan Taksto Hyabadrani. Vidunoti Suhritsatam. That by hearing and chanting about Krishna, then the heart becomes cleansed. Hridyan Taksto Hyabadrani. Abadrani means dirty things in the heart. And the next verse, Nasta Praishu Abhadreshu, that the Abhadra, Bhadra means auspicious, like Subhadra, the incarnation of Yogamaya, Krishna's sister, Jagannath, Baldev, and Subhadra. Bhadra means auspicious. Subhadra means really nicely auspicious, super auspicious. Su means good. So Subhadra. The good, the really auspicious, super great things. But Abhadra means inauspicious things or unwanted things. Nasta Praishu. Nashta, the Abhadra, the inauspicious things, Nashta, they become destroyed. Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya, by rendering devotional service to Krishna regularly, daily. The inauspicious things that lie within the heart, like lust, anger, greed, madness, illusion, and envy, they become destroyed. So that is from the first canto, second chapter, and I'm going to read just a few verses here. These are all-time great classic verses and my favorites. I'm sure I've read them in here before. And I'm sure after today, I will read them in here again. But they're so vital that they're worth hearing repeatedly. Beginning from first canto, chapter 2, Divinity and Divine Service. So, the Nasta Praishu Abhadreshu verse. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, that's Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. Nitya means eternal. Prabhupada renders that as regularly. Eternal means you do it every day. And by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service under the personality of Godhead, Bhagavat Uttama Shloke, who is praised with transcendental songs. Uttama Shloka, transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So Tama means darkness or ignorance, and Uttama Ut, when you add that to it, means above the darkness or above the ignorance. So Uttama means the highest, which is way above the lowest. So it's not Tama, it's Uttama. Uttama Shloka. Transcendental songs. And the Bhagavatam, of course, is filled with such Uttama Shloka. In the next verse, Tada Rajastamo Bhava Kamalobachayasche Chitayate Anabritam Anabidham Stitvam Satve Prasiddhiti. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes completely happy. So that is the key to our happiness, is the cleansing away of the unwanted things in the heart, which are the modes of passion and ignorance, the lower modes of nature. That the lust, the desire, the hankering to enjoy, the desire for profit, adoration, and distinction. Then those things disappear from the heart by hearing and chanting and rendering service and associating with devotees and taking prasad. Then, as those lower modes of nature are kicked out from one's heart, they disappear and one becomes happy. Finally, I'm unburdened from the lust and hankering. And then you become happy. And what happens when you become happy and you're in the mode of goodness? Evam prasana manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sanghasya jayate. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. So a devotee becomes evam prasanna manaso, he becomes enlivened by practicing Krishna consciousness. The mind becomes enlivened. Evam prasanna manaso. Manasa means the mind. Evam, thus, evam prasanna. Prasanna means very happy. The Prabhupada says you become enlivened by contact with devotional service. Then what happens? Bhagavat tattva vijnanam. One of my all-time favorite phrases in the Bhagavatam. Bhagavat tattva, the truth of God. Vijnanam, you become realized. And Prabhupada renders that as you gain positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. So it is natural for the living entities in the human form of life to inquire, what is the truth? What is the truth? What is the truth? Everyone's looking for the truth. Bhagavat tattva vijnanam, the truth of God, you realize that by engaging in Krishna consciousness. Mukta sanghasya jayate, then you become liberated from all unwanted association and material contamination. And then there's one more verse in this series, number 21. Bijate hridaya grantish chijjante sarvashamshayaha jiyante chasya karmani drishta evat manishvare. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self and the master. There's some mistranslation there. It says when one sees the self as master. No, when one sees the self and the master of the self. So there's this hard knot in the heart. And I think most of us have this experience of having this hard knot in our heart. It's like a pain, this squeezing, this hard knot in the heart of material desire and unfulfilled material desire and being like a slave or under the control of that desire, and it's unfulfilled, and it just squeezes you, and you can feel it. It's this hard knot in my heart. But that hard knot, which you cannot untie because it's so tightly pulled into that knot, you can't undo it. You ever had a knot that you couldn't undo with your fingers and you had to get a knife or something and cut it? So that knot is pierced. That hard knot in the heart becomes pierced. That knot becomes slackened and released. And then one's doubts about Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says here, one's misgivings are cut to pieces. And thus, the chain of karma, of action, reaction, is terminated, and one is liberated. And one sees oneself in relation to the Supreme Lord. So that's what this little section of verses is telling us. So that is very attractive proposition, that our misgivings are being contaminated by the lower modes, is broken up, and we become healed, we become cured of our disease. It's called the bhava roga, the disease of material existence. And the spiritual master is the physician who heals us by giving us the medicine to cure us of our disease. And that medicine is hearing, chanting, serving, remembering, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Scrubbanam, Moppanam, scrubbing the floor and mopping up the mess, and scraping the paint, scraping them and brushing them. There's so many things in the devotional service of the Lord. Scrubbing them, mopping them, scraping them, painting them, cutting them in the kitchen. And all these activities taken together as a whole, along with hearing and chanting, they relieve us of this burden, of this hard knot that we have in our heart. Okay, let's have a show of hands. How many people have actually experienced that pain of the hard knot in the heart? Raise your hand. Okay. He's raising both hands. Ajitesh, you not felt the hard knot in the heart? Because you are pure. So I've physically felt that pain of the hard knot in the heart. And when I read this, I thought, oh, that's what that was. That's what that was. That just being subjected to the buffeting of the modes, as experiencing that as a conditioned soul. That's what that was. That's what that feeling was. Wow. So now I know. And a lot of times we'll experience that hard knot or that pain in the heart will come in different circumstances, generally at the hands of others. What they do or what they say causes us that pain in the heart. So there was something I wanted to read here. Just to finish with this. The little thought I had. To understand one's actual self-interest, one must understand what the actual self is. In other words, the spirit soul servant of Krishna and not the body. So one must understand what is the self is before one can understand what is the best interest of the self. Then one can act accordingly. Foregoing sense gratification in order to pursue self-realization by engaging in devotional service to the Supreme, to Krishna, is one's actual interest, one's self-interest. Sense gratification interferes with or destroys one's self-realization. Similarly, Krishna consciousness purifies us of material desires, like profit, adoration, and distinction, and destroys the inauspicious things or the desire for sense gratification. Just like a couple of days ago, there was that fantastic verse where you have the little pond of water and then the reeds grow up around the pond, and those reeds, they want their water and they suck all the water out of the pond. So those reeds are like material desires and offenses. And that desire for sense gratification sucks up our Krishna consciousness if we let it take hold and grow. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that we have to be like a gardener. And when that bhakti lata bija, that seed of the creeper of devotion, is planted in our heart, then we have to fence it all around and pull out the weeds so that it can grow luxuriously. Otherwise, the weeds are going to grow, and the weeds can overtake the plant and choke it out. And the weeds are very powerful. But if they're pulled out, then everything is fine. So I love that verse. I wish I'd gotten that verse. I read that verse. First time I read that verse, it just struck me like a thunderbolt. Those reeds, those weeds, sucking away at our true self-realization. And if we feed them by sense gratification, then they will become victorious over our Krishna consciousness. But if we pull them out forcibly, painfully, pull them out by the root and discard them, then we're in the safe position. And then all the hearing and chanting waters that creeper of devotion, which grows luxuriantly till it reaches the lotus feet of Krishna in the spiritual world. That's a whole nice section in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we're stopping here. Questions, comments, realizations, accounts of feeling the pain of the knot in the heart, Chandrika.
It's just interesting how obstruction has come up in the verse, because yesterday all we kept hearing at the hospital was he has obstruction, he has obstructions. And at one point there was a lot of different doctors and that coming in and out, but one doctor, and he was Indian looking, and he came in and he said, he was very quick, and he says he was trying to get him to be more conscious, and he was saying, do you know where you are? What's your name? Do you know where you are? And he kept saying that, and he says, does he speak? And I said, well, he does normally, but in this situation, and he kept sort of tapping him. So I said, do you want me to try? And I said, Charya, I said, Hare Krishna, Charya, Hare Krishna, and he totally went, Hare Krishna. So it was like whatever obstruction was going on within him, it was nice that, whatever obstruction we have, it seems like as long as we're connected with Krishna.
Yes, it's a very graphic analysis of obstructions.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever I had the experience of being out in Sankirtan in a very cold parking lot in Maine. If you've ever been to Maine, it's the way they talk. And it gets cold up there early in the year. The campground's closed in October. And it was cold and it was rainy. And I was going from car to car, distributing, and whenever I would think about or sing a Hare Krishna melody, then I noticed I would be no longer feeling the cold and the rain. It just like the feeling disappeared and I wasn't cold. But then if I thought about sense gratification, I immediately would start freezing. And it was so graphic. It was quite an experience. And taught me, don't think of sense gratification, especially in a cold, rainy parking lot in the late autumn in Maine or any other place. So if we think of Krishna, then the material miseries, they go far away. And if we think of some think about sense gratification of enjoying, then the miseries are immediately upon us. Anyone else? All right. A little bit early, that's good. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. That's a socket two of my hard hitting verse there.